Seriously? Another fridge? Swear to God, with all these fridges, forget overlanding. I'm turning this Jeep into an ice cream truck. You know, when I first got into overlanding a few years ago, before the pandemic started making everybody get into overlanding, I remember learning about 12-volt fridges and definitely wanted to get one for the Jeep. But at the time, there weren't that many options. The first one I learned about was ARB, and then after that I learned about Dometic, and those were basically the two standard fridges that overlanders could get. Nowadays though, it seems like everybody has their own version of a fridge. Like all these companies are coming out of the woodworks creating these fridges, which I think is great because it gives us so many different options from different bells and whistles, different price points, different sizes. You know, at the time when you only have like ARB and Dometic to choose from, well, those aren't necessarily cheap. And now with all these other options out there, there's definitely something that will meet everyone's budgets and needs. And that's kind of why I've been liking doing these budget fridge reviews, for the simple fact that there are many of us who just want a fridge to do what a fridge is supposed to do, which is keep our food and our drinks cold, and that is it. We're not looking to spend thousands of dollars to be able to monitor it and use Bluetooth and all the stuff. We don't all have that kind of budget, and we all just kind of want just a simple enough fridge so we don't have to bring a cooler with ice every trip that we go to. Because who still wants to bring a cooler with ice? Like, you got to go buy the ice and you got to fill the cooler, then the ice will melt and you got to dump out the water, then you got to buy more ice, and you're doing all this because you're thinking, I'll never be able to afford a 12-volt fridge. Well, yes, you can. For the amount of money that you have spent on ice in the last few years, you can buy yourself a fridge now that will basically pay for itself. And that is what I am presenting for you today. So yeah, another review on a portable fridge. This is the BougeRV, Bouge, like bougie, BougeRV 30-quart 12-volt portable fridge. Now, quick disclaimer, BougeRV did send me this fridge to review. This is not a sponsored video. I am not being paid for my review, and I almost said no. I literally almost said no because I'm like, why do I need another fridge? But when I realized that it was a 30-liter and it's a lot smaller than the fridges I have, I figured I'd try to give this one a shot and see if it's something that could fit my needs, especially for solo camping. So let's talk specs. So first off, the model number for this is A3001-2803. It is 30 quarts or 28 liters or 0.99 cubic feet. The dimensions are 22.68 inches long, 12.6 inches wide, and 15.55 inches tall. The temperature range is -7 degrees to 50 degrees, which I think is really cool. No pun intended. All my other fridges only go down to 0 degrees, and this one you can go all the way down to -7. So if you need something colder than 0 degrees, then you have that option. The weight for this is 22.8 pounds. The voltage is 1224 volt DC or 110 to 240 volt AC. The wattage, max mode is 60 watts and eco mode is 45 watts, so we'll talk about that in just a little bit. The noise is less than or equal to 45 decibels, and the refrigerant is R134A. Now, just like my IceCo, you do get two power supplies with your BougeRV fridge. You have your DC and you have your AC. The DC is what gets plugged into your vehicle by way of 12-volt socket, and the AC is what gets plugged into your home outlet or in your vehicle, granted you have an inverter. Personally, I like having two different systems like this because that means I can keep this one plugged in the vehicle and I can keep this one plugged at home, and then I just have to move the fridge without having to move a lot of wires around. The Set Power fridge that I reviewed before, it only had one system, and you basically have this 12-volt adapter that goes into a plug, and then you plug this into that 12-volt adapter and then plug it into the home outlet, except that it was so loose that it would sometimes come off. And on top of that, if I wanted to move it from the house to the vehicle, I have to bring all those cords with me as well. This just allows me to have two different things plugged in to two different areas, and then I just have to move the fridge and plug in just the back part of it. Price for this particular model, $299.99, which is an amazing price point for a 30-liter fridge compared to the the IceCo JP30, their 30-liter fridge, that's about 500 bucks. And then the ARB and the Dometic run about 750 to 850 bucks for their 30-liter fridge. Now granted, you're not gonna get all the bells and whistles that you might get with the higher end fridges, but you just have to think about what is important to you. You got to think about it the same way you think about your home refrigerators, right? Like there are home refrigerators right now that have cameras and you can see inside your fridge without having to open the door, or you can connect to it via Bluetooth and all this other crazy stuff. Or you might just want just a basic fridge in your house that can store your food and your drinks and keep them cold. So what do I like? Well, first off, I like the design a lot. It's very, very simple, just square, nothing crazy. Matter of fact, look at that. That logo is very, very subtle. I like that it's gray with the white, so that looks really nice and clean as well. So if this is the kind of color scheme that you like. As far as opening it, it opens this way. You cannot switch the lids around though, just like the Set Power. The Set Power, why I like that fridge a lot is you can take the lid and move it the other way so you can orient that however you want. Well, with this, it only opens this one way. The buttons are really, really simple as well. It's the same buttons that you have, like I have with all of my other stuff as well. It's just your power button, and then you have the settings here that allows you to choose you know, your eco or your max power, and then you have your temperatures here, plus and minus. We have a 45 quart with IceCo, and then we have a 45 quart with Set Power, and those are great. When me and my family are going out, then we definitely will bring the 45 quart with us. But sometimes if it's just me that's gonna go camping, overlanding, off-roading, I don't need to bring a humongous fridge that is heavy. Like those are pretty heavy that I have to lift it and put it into the Jeep. This is like super light. Like I can carry this around very, very easily. So it's like having a cooler without needing to put ice in it. Now what I don't like, which might be a deal breaker for some of you, is there are no handles except for these. Like these are the handles that are already built in. Now you might think, well, what's the big deal? You can carry it. That's not the problem. But in an overlanding rig, you're gonna put this on a slide. We sometimes need those handles to strap the fridge down. This does not have that kind of strapping point. I'm gonna end up having to strap the whole thing down, and when I get to camp, take off the straps, and then we can open the lid, right? But when we're driving around, there's no way for me to reach inside the fridge to get something to drink or whatever without having to undo the straps. I think that they need to put some sort of system on here that will allow me to strap this thing down. Now right over here is the port that you plug it in. Here's my thing though. I don't see anywhere on this fridge at all, at least not that I can see, where you can change out the fuse. So if the fuse blows, I think you might have to pop it open from the bottom, and there might be an area inside. I haven't checked yet. On my other fridges, you have a little slot that you put your fuse in. This one does not have a slot for a fuse, so that's kind of concerning a little bit. Now the other thing that I'm also kind of not liking with this fridge, which might be a deal breaker for some of you, is that it does not have a light inside. Yeah, there is absolutely no light in here at all. Kind of sucks. Now one thing that BougeRV does boast about on their website is that this unit cools really, really quickly. Compared to my 45 quart fridges, those take a little while longer. Of course, this is smaller, so it should cool down much faster than my 45 quart ones. But let's go and see how fast I can get this to go from not having been plugged in yet all the way down to 35 degrees, which is where we usually keep our fridges for regular food storage. All right, so as I mentioned before, here is your main control panel. You have your power button here, then you have your max and eco button there, and you have your plus and minus to set your temp. We'll go through this menu in just a little bit so you can see exactly how you can set certain things. But one thing I did forget to mention is right down here, I was trying to figure out what this was, but when I popped it open, it's a USB port. That is a great feature. That's something that I don't have in my other fridges. So if you want to charge up devices or whatnot, you can just plug it directly into that. I think what would be a good idea is if you have a Bluetooth speaker, you can plug it directly into that as well. That way, if you're picnicking or overlanding, camping, whatever, and you just have your fridge out and you want to play some music, you can just plug right directly into that and get power that way. All right, so to turn this thing on, you just got to hold the power button down for 3 seconds. And there you go. Right now it's at 79 degrees Fahrenheit inside. We need to set this to whatever temperature we want. Out of the factory, it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit is what they have it set at. So we're just going to go ahead and bring that up to 35. And then now it'll start to cool to bring that 79 degrees down to 35. Now over here, when you press this settings button, you can go from max to eco. Basically, max is if you want to get it down to that 35 as quickly as possible. Then once you're there, to conserve some energy, switch it to eco so that you can, it's basically just maintaining that temperature. So to do that, just hold down right there. So there you go, there's eco. And if you want to switch to max, that's how you just go back and forth. Now, if you want to switch from Fahrenheit to Celsius, you hold the plus button and the settings button together for 3 seconds. So now it's reading at Celsius. And if you want to switch back to Fahrenheit, hold that down again. And that'll go back to Fahrenheit. Now, one thing you also want to set is your protection mode. What protection mode basically means is if you have this plugged into your vehicle's battery, well, you don't want this thing draining your battery. Now your vehicle won't start. So you can tell the fridge at what point do you want this thing to shut off. Having it on high means you're leaving a lot of juice left still on your battery, and then this thing will just cut off, right? Like it won't drain your battery down to a certain level. If you have it on medium, which is where I kind of like it, it's kind of a good point for it. And if you go to low, that's basically you're draining your battery to almost empty before this thing shuts off. I prefer medium, so to change that, we just hold down this power button here, this settings button here for 3 seconds until that starts to flash. Right now it's high, and then I'll go ahead and set that there's low and set it to medium, and that's good for me. Hold it down and that'll basically set it to medium. Now let's see how long this thing will take to go from 79 degrees to 35. Alright, so I'm not sure how I thought that my phone and my GoPro could hang for the length of time that this thing needed for it to cool down to temperature. Not that it took a long time, I just thought it was going to be maybe 10-15 minutes. We started this at 1:15 and it is now 1:50, so it went from 77 degrees down to 36 degrees in about 35 minutes. Not a long time at all. That's pretty standard compared to my other fridges as well. 77 degrees down to 36, 35. It's fluctuating right now because it's also hot outside. So it's fluctuating right now from 36 and 35, then you'll see it go to 37 and back down to 35. But about 35 minutes for this to cool down. All right, too long didn't read. Here's the recap. Things that I like. Well, first off, size. 30 quarts I think is perfect for solo camping, day on the beach, day on the trails, and something that I didn't think about earlier that I just thought about now, this would be perfect as a secondary fridge. If you already have a bigger fridge that you keep all your food in and you just need a secondary one for the overflow, or if you want to just keep this specifically for drinks or keep this specifically as a freezer, you can definitely do that. There is something to be said about smaller fridges because real estate is paramount. You want to try to minimize the amount of real estate you take up inside your rig. So if you don't really need to bring a 45 quart type of fridge, something huge, and you just need it for the day, perfect size. Speaking of size, weight. Very, very light, 23 pounds, easy to maneuver, carry around. You can just bring this from the garage to the vehicle or transfer it from one vehicle to the other. So I really, really like that as well. All right, third thing, price point. At 300 bucks, not a bad deal, especially if you've been considering buying a fridge, but you're just not ready to fork out $500 to $1,000 for something that you may not be using very often. 300 bucks is a great price point to get into the entry level type fridges, and it humongously upgrades you from that cooler and ice setup that you're probably running right now. I really like the look of this thing. White with a dark gray border and a dark gray lid and a very conspicuous logo on the side. Looks really clean, looks really nice. The fifth thing that I liked about this is being able to charge devices through the USB port that they have up here. That's a really, really great feature that I don't have in my other fridges. Now for the things that I didn't like, again, I wish they had a way for us to strap this thing down. That's a safety issue. If you're hitting the trails or if you even get into an accident, the last thing you want is for this to not be strapped down. Despite the fact that it's light, I don't think any of us want 23 pounds bouncing around inside our vehicle. All right, and the second thing, there's no light, which is a huge bummer because we're not just using this fridge during the day, we're also using it at night. We need to access some food for us to cook, and without a light, that just makes things a little bit harder. Also, one thing I didn't mention before, this thing does not have a basket. All my other fridges, they have a basket, which makes it a lot easier. I just take the basket out, bring it into the house, load it with groceries, then drop it back into the fridge. Without a basket, I'm gonna have to bring this into the house, load this with groceries, then put it in the vehicle, or bring the groceries to the fridge in the vehicle. It just makes it a lot harder. Also, when you're needing to access stuff, you're gonna have to dig through here to find what you need, versus the other fridges, I can take the basket out, look around, see what it is that I need, and I'll know exactly where it's at. And then finally, the last thing I didn't like is that there's no way for me to change out the fuse on this thing. Good news is this is going to get plugged into a power distribution hub that I have set up in the Jeep, and on that hub there are fuses. So if too much power goes into this thing, that fuse will blow and I'll be able to replace it. It just sucks that there's not one on the body itself. Bottom line is this is not going to be my main fridge. It's basically going to be a secondary fridge to the main fridge in the event that I just want to keep this as a cooler, or if I need to bring more food to feed more people, or if we're doing an extended stay type of thing and I need to bring more food than necessary, then that's what this is going to be used for. Or if I'm going to go solo camping by myself, or if we're just going to go for a day at the beach, or if we're going to go run around town and get groceries, or if I'm hitting the trail with the guys, that's what this is going to be used for. But anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it informative, especially if you've been shopping around for a fridge for some time now and trying to figure out which one to get and what price points. 300 bucks, not bad, although it does come with some caveats. You do get what you pay for. That's just, it is what it is. But if you did like this video, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and also consider supporting us on Patreon so we can continue to make more content like this. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time. They are shooting off fireworks outside. Great.